people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
To the mother relay, we're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this, our continued recap of this past weekend's action. Sky Nicholson's fight against Lucy Wildheart, what is a taller and longer customer, a taller and longer opponent than we're used to seeing Sky Nicholson share the ring with. And she managed the distance beautifully. She does look to have improved, though improving on things that she's already good at. Long range fighting, long distance fighting, on the balls of her feet, pot shotting from the outside, from a safe distance. We didn't see much in terms of inside game. I want to say that Lucy Wildheart, I expected her to apply a little bit more pressure and take more risks. I feel like she gave Sky a lot of respect. That's a credit to Sky.
Lucy Wildheart was fencing with her jab more than stepping into it to bring the backhand over, giving Sky Nicholson a lot of respect. I'd wager it's because she respects Sky's speed. Her counter punching.
Sky's movement circling Lucy made it that much more difficult for her to get within striking distance of Sky. As stated, we didn't see much in terms of inside game. Whenever Lucy Wildheart did manage to get past the straight punches and the looping punches, whenever she managed to get close enough to Sky that she's mid-range to inside, Sky would tie her up. They'd end up in a clinch. So that deficiency is more or less still there. I would like to see more in-fighting.
Inside fighting.
Sky's countrywoman and reigning IBF bantamweight champion Benavidez stated, a lot of people might diss Sky's style because it's quote-unquote boring, but it works. And as much as I have a lot of respect for Amanda Serrano, if any style is going to cause Serrano problems, it's Sky's, in my opinion. Singing Sky Nicholson's praises, the idea there is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you can win these fights from a safe distance, long range, why should you change it? And it's because sooner or later, somebody's going to break through. Somebody is going to get on the inside. And when they do, you're going to need to know what to do besides holding.
Can't say I'm not impressed with how Sky handled Lucy Wildheart. I was. This fight sparked my curiosity because, as stated, Lucy is taller and longer than most other girls that Sky has shared the ring with, having a noticeable height advantage and reach advantage over them, a speed advantage.
It's gonna be difficult for short, stumpy fighters to close the distance on a taller, longer fighter that's moving away. So Lucy Wildheart having a bit of height and a bit of length, it sparked my curiosity, and I think Sky handled her well, dominated her. The first to stop Lucy Wildheart.
That's impressive. Lucy's been in there with an Olympic gold medalist in Estelle Mosley, a former unified super featherweight champion in Michaela Mayer, and the both of them are naturally bigger women than Sky. The last thing I expected was that Sky would force a corner stoppage.
Sky's not a knockout merchant. The way that she fights, she's not the kind of fighter that goes in there looking for knockouts. But so many clean punches were landing on a badly bloodied Lucy Wildheart that it was her corner that threw the towel. Late into the fight, into the 9th round, it was looking bleak. Sky Nicholson circling Lucy, keeping distance and walking her into straight punches and looping punches, doing what she does best from her sweet spot, which is just on the outside of her opponent. She managed the distance beautifully, but still didn't show me much in terms of inside game. And you are going to need that if you are to stand a chance against Amanda Serrano.
Ebony thinks all that movement would give Amanda a lot of problems, just the movement.
To that, a Twitter user that goes by the name Amy Marie Spangler asked, what is it about Sky's style that would give Serrano problems? I mean, length and reach maybe would, but what exactly about her style? They seem leagues apart to me. Genuinely trying to learn and understand here. Respect. To which Ebony Bridges responded, if Serrano just follows and doesn't cut off the ring and is slow on her feet, or dives in with too many shots, Sky is very slick, but If Serrano can try to catch Sky and work her body and slow her down, that's the key. Serrano will need to have great feet to cut her off and have head movement, which aren't her strong suits. Amanda is brilliant at mid and close range when she can put her punches together, but she has to land and hurt Sky, aka KO her. She will also have to land clean, which, with Sky's footwork and movement and long range, could be a very hard task. What I think Ebony's not factoring into the equation is that Amanda Serrano is a veteran that's not afraid to take one, to give one. She's not going to be worried about Sky's power because Sky is not a big puncher. Amanda's been in there with big punchers at 7 different weights. Sky isn't going to...
Amanda's taking clean punches from Erica Cruz, a bigger puncher by and large than Sky Nicholson, and a more prolific puncher, a busier fighter. And if Amanda Serrano can go 10 rounds with Erica Cruz throwing everything at her but the kitchen sink, I don't think she's going to be worried about Sky's 1 and 2 punches at a time from a safe distance. You have to factor in that Amanda's not afraid to take one, to give one, and she's still a bigger puncher than Sky.
She spends too much time moving around, too much time with her back on the ropes, going from one turnbuckle over to the next, not getting that many punches out there and not landing that many punches as a result. The fight ends up looking like the Sarah Mahfoud fight, where now you're just moving to make it out of the round. You're just moving to survive. You can't deal with a bully-style fighter, that bully style, by retreating. You have to fight them off. And because Sky shows very little in terms of inside game, outside of holding, she could be in trouble. So it's a fight I still favor Amanda Serrano to win.
If Sky is serious about fighting Amanda in her next fight, she can fight her in Puerto Rico. It's rumored that Amanda's next fight is going to be in her native Puerto Rico. She could do it in Puerto Rico. Amanda's the A side, we all know that.
Or, if Amanda's willing, maybe they can do Serrano versus Nicholson as the co-main event of Taylor versus Cameron 3, the trilogy. That's an idea they're playing with. If Amanda's willing, they can do it that way.
But I don't like Sky's chances against Amanda Serrano. How the hell are you going to fight Amanda Serrano with no inside game? You think you're going to stay on the outside the whole 10 rounds?
You'll end up on the outside just trying to survive, like Sarah Mahfoud did. End up losing a points decision because you're getting bullied and you're getting outworked. I don't like Sky's chances, but she says she wants the fight, so give her what she wants. In men's middleweight and super middleweight news, after his points decision win over Jose Benavidez, Jermal Charlo has named David Benavidez and Caleb Plant as potential opponents for him at super middleweight, but also welcomed Carlos Adames and Yanibek Alimkanulai at middleweight. He said he will defend or vacate his WBC middleweight world title depending on his next fight. I anticipate that he will vacate the title. He will give it up. He's not going back down to 160. He could barely make the proposed catch weight of 163. Remember, he came in at 166. He's not dropping down to 160 for those other guys. What I think will happen is Carlos Adames will end up facing his brother, Jermal, former undisputed junior middleweight champion. I think he's all but done at junior middle. He'll move to middle, at which point he'll fight Carlos Adames for either the WBC title or the vacant WBC title. I'll leave that up to the WBC. As far as Jermal, I'd sooner expect him to fight Caleb Plant because they have unfinished business than him fighting David Benavidez. You saw what David just did to Demetrius. What would he do to Jermal Charlo, who could not dispatch Jose Benavidez, a guy who used to campaign as a welterweight? Jermal couldn't put him away, and it's not because he wasn't landing. He was landing his shots, his body shots, his right hands. He was getting in and he was getting off, but he couldn't put that guy away. So what chance would he stand against David Benavidez?
He's not fighting David. I don't expect him to. I expect he will either fight Caleb Plant or maybe Demetrius Andrade, who's now coming off his first professional loss. He's on the bounce.
A former champion at junior middleweight and middleweight, the same as Jermal Charlo, who's not the same fighter that he used to be, even though he's still unbeaten, and even though he snapped back his long stint of inactivity. Demetrius Andrade versus Jermal Charlo would be a sensible fight for the both of them. I would sooner expect to see that than a David Benavidez fight for Jermal. Jermal, who is mismanaged.
He has been. You remember all those years ago when DAZN first debuted in America and they were throwing all that money around willingly overpaying for fights to attract viewers and attract talent to their platform. They offered Jermal somewhere in the neighborhood of $7 million to cross over to their side of things and unify titles with a then unbeaten Demetrius Andrade.
Jermal Charlo did not take them up on their offer, and don't tell me it's because the money wasn't real. The money was real enough for Mikey Garcia to go over there and retire over there. The money was real enough for Andy Ruiz when he boxed Anthony Joshua. The money was real, but Jermal Charlo, he didn't want it. He stayed on his side of things, and to do what?
What?
To become mentally unfit?
What?
An absentee champion?
What?
He stayed over there to do what? To be out of the sport for 2.5 years?
He should have took the money. When a similar offer was made to Jose Ramirez, then WBC super lightweight champion, a top-ranked fighter, when a similar offer was made to him to come over to DAZN for a one-off, a unification match, he took the money.
Jermal Charlo didn't, even though he was made an offer for even more money than Jose was offered. I'm not here to play psychiatrist for what are multi-millionaires, guys playing with that kind of money. I'm not here to feel sorry for all the squandered opportunities in Jermal Charlo's boxing career. This is all a self-inflicted wound based on mismanagement.
I'm not here to feel sorry for a guy and what stupid decisions he made, what missed opportunities.
People these days seem to have an obsession with pity parties and who can get the most people to feel sorry for them. I ain't doing it.
Is that the goal?
Jermal Charlo should not still be middleweight champion here today, having not boxed there in 2.5 years. Oh yeah, he just fought 6 pounds above the middleweight limit, and he's leaving it in the air as to whether or not he will even return to that division. If that's not brazen chicanery and brazen favoritism, I don't know what is.
Another American hype job. You know, the Charlo brothers, Demetrius Andrade. These are the guys they like to lord over Canelo Alvarez. And take a look, take a good long look at these guys and how their careers are going.
At this point, it's not even a secret that Jermal Charlo has walked away from a Canelo Alvarez fight not once, but twice. And as far as his brother, we saw what Canelo did to his brother. Lions only.
That's a joke.
And what about Demetrius Andrade, a guy they used to hype up for years, and for having done what? Just so that as soon as he steps up in class, as soon as he steps up in competition, he starts to unravel in just 6 rounds. There goes that hype train. Why? Because he was fighting a naturally bigger fighter? Well, Canelo Alvarez does that all the time.
Bunch of fucking hype jobs.
What's left of today's Jermal Charlo would be little more than target practice for David Benavidez, so I don't expect to see that fight happen. It will either be Demetrius Andrade or Caleb Plant that he fights next. That's what I expect. Now, as it pertains to David Benavidez, who fought in the main event of that same show as Jermal Charlo, David Benavidez has declared that he will consider moving up to light heavyweight to challenge Dimitri Bivol if Canelo Alvarez won't fight him at super middleweight. Even here and now, on the heels of his big win over Demetrius Andrade, his dominant win over Demetrius Andrade, sensational knockout victory that might be, I still don't like his chances against Dimitri, and I still don't like his chances against Canelo. The probability of him actually fighting Dimitri, that's rather low as well. Dimitri will be returning to action before this year is out in December in that Saudi Arabia show. Then the following year, he will presumably square off against the winner of Artur Beterbiev versus Callum Smith in Saudi.
Or somewhere else, depending on who wins. If Artur wins, then yeah, maybe they do the fight in Saudi, but if Callum wins, maybe they do it in Liverpool.
Thus, all this talk about Benavidez potentially moving up and potentially fighting Dimitri Bivol, well, that fight is way out there, at least a year, maybe over a year from now, as it pertains to a potential Canelo Alvarez fight.
That's the one we all want, and that's the one that's on everybody's mind, the one everybody's talking about. Canelo is undisputed champion at the same weight as David.
The rumor is that Canelo Alvarez may be facing his countryman Jaime Munguia in May, then perhaps squaring off against David in September as what would be his final fight of his existing PBC deal.
There's supposed to still be 2 fights left in that deal.
And I would actually prefer to see Canelo Alvarez face David Benavidez next. I would actually prefer to see him face him on Cinco de Mayo weekend, but we don't know here and now that that's the order it's going to happen in. The biggest disconnect between what are Canelo fans like myself and David Benavidez supporters is that somehow the Canelo fans are against Canelo fighting David Benavidez when nothing could be further from the truth. The Canelo fans want that fight just as much as Benavidez fans do.
These rumors of Canelo potentially fighting someone else in May have given rise to the duck word. All of that duck talk, some of us have learned our lesson.
I know I learned mine years ago, underestimating Canelo Alvarez, calling him a ducker for not fighting Gennady Golovkin sooner rather than later, just for Canelo Alvarez to end up getting the better end of the trilogy when all the smoke settled. And what about those who thought Canelo was for some reason ducking Caleb Plant?
Before that fight got made, the ones who said Canelo was avoiding him, the ones who actually picked Caleb Plant to win that fight, you won't find many of them here and now willing to admit.
They won't admit it because Caleb ended up getting knocked out. It's besides the point. Essentially what I'm getting at is, we've read this book already. We've read this book before where people grow impatient with Canelo, accusing him of ducking a particular fighter or fighters just for him to end up fighting that fighter and beating that fighter anyway. So I've no doubts that either in May or September, Canelo's gonna fight this guy. Canelo's gonna fight David because now the fight is bigger and the money is there.
It's just the Benavidez fans being crybabies about it.
I still favor Canelo Alvarez to beat David Benavidez. Nothing about this weekend's fight, really, nothing about Demetrius Andrade and how he fights speaks to Canelo Alvarez and what challenges he would present to David Benavidez, where Demetrius Andrade is a tall and slinky fighter, a southpaw. Canelo is a short, stumpy, orthodox fighter. They're really nothing alike.
Canelo's short and stumpy, whereas Demetrius is tall and long. Canelo's an orthodox fighter, where Demetrius is a southpaw. Canelo's fought a who's who of fighters from 154 to 175, whereas Demetrius
hadn't fought anybody. He hadn't fought anyone of note from 154 up to 160 into 168. He has no signature victories, no signature wins, and that's probably why he unraveled so quickly as soon as he stepped up in class.
It's a good win for David, a signature win for David, but make no mistake, there's nothing about Demetrius Andrade that you can liken to Canelo Alvarez. If anything, they're polar opposites. So you looking great with Demetrius?
Doesn't change my mind about how you'd look with Canelo. They aren't the same. They don't fight the same. They have very little in terms of similarities. Canelo Alvarez is quite capable mid-range to inside. His head movement, his upper body movement, his ability to catch and shoot out of that high guard, his counter-punching, and he, unlike Demetrius, has punching power. He, unlike Demetrius, has fought a who's who of fighters right there at 168.
Where Demetrius found out just 2 fights into his super middleweight campaign that he can't hack it at that weight. Canelo Alvarez, he unified that same division, that same weight, in only 11 months. So for David, a Canelo fight is a very different fight than the one he just had.
An aggressive mid-range to inside puncher, even a big one like David, is doing half the work for Canelo by giving up his height and opening up as much as he does. Canelo won't have to find him.
He'll be there for the counters.
So I've still got Canelo.